Hello and welcome back to the lecture on applied econometrics. We have been talking about model specification, and in model specification, we spoke about the problem of exclusion or inclusion of a variable. And we also talked about measurement error. So in this particular lecture, we're actually going to talk about the problem that is associated with the measurement error. And this measurement error, so let me write it down. Measurement error occurs, the measurement error occurs because we do not have the values for the exact variable that we are looking for. And because we do not have values for the exact variable, what we use is a proxy variable. We use a proxy variable, and because we use a proxy variable, we leave out some of the part that we actually want to measure from that exact variable. And let me explain that with an example so that it becomes easier for us to sort of get a hold of what is an exact variable and what is a proxy variable. So let me say that, let's say an exact variable, I use this term, for let's say measuring wage is, let's say, IQ or talent of an individual, right? But we really do not have the data on IQ. Rather, what we have is some value for education, some data for education, okay, which is basically a proxy, for IQ, okay. So when I want to measure IQ, but I'm actually measuring education, so I'm basically using a proxy variable, okay? And it is something like saying, like it goes, a one-eyed uncle is better than no uncle, okay? So I have something instead of, having nothing. So that is why there are plenty of use of proxy variable we'll see in the literature of economics when we basically use survey data. And the reason is that it is very difficult to collect data on specific items, let's say IQ. Now a surveyor will not be able to collect IQ. He cannot go to each and every household or the sample households and actually go and measure IQ of people. Okay. The other part is that, like, let's say I am a researcher and I'm using a survey data, but the survey data is actually collected by someone else. Okay, so the first problem I said is that the cost of measurement. Okay, cost of measurement. And the second problem that I was talking about is that it is a survey data that is collected by, let's say, in the case of India, it is by the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, and it is a large number of wings across the states and districts, and these people are always working to collect this data. Now, this data is collected based on a standard format, and that format is prescribed by, again, a group of statisticians, and they decide on what format the data should be collected on. And there are different rounds, and in different rounds they collect data on different topics, let's say migration, education, unemployment, health, and so forth. Now, I as a researcher may not have the exact requirement whatever data they're collecting, but rather I would have some requirements for which there is no data, okay, or there are some partial data which is basically collected by some proxy variables, okay. So that is the second problem. So it is basically surveyor the survey the survey, the spelling is wrong, I have written, survey is done by a different agency, okay, by a different agency, not by the researcher. So that is a problem. So they don't, the agency does not know, or the ministry does not know what exactly me as a researcher sitting in a corner of an university would be requiring, okay. So, and there are so many other researchers, they're requiring so many different aspects of data. Even if the ministry knows that, okay, these are the data required, it is very difficult to collect data for everyone. So essentially they collect this data in a standard format, which I'm going to show you in a moment. And that format is essentially, that data is used by everyone, and people actually use proxy variable. So let me actually show you, before I actually talk further about it, let me actually show you some sample of data which is collected by national sample, basically Ministry of Statistics, in the form of national sample survey data. Now, what I'm going to show you is a report. So this is 66th round national sample survey data collected on employment, unemployment back in 2019. And let me just show you what are the different tables for which data is collected and what are the different variables for which data is collected. And this is, as I said, it is employment, unemployment, as well as consumption data that was collected. So let's see. So let's say I want to actually, understand, let's say people income that people are making and the wages and salaries people receive and, what are the variables which are responsible for the income or the wages and salaries, okay? So let us see what are the variables, which are covered. So you can actually go to the reason I have kept it is you can actually go and, just type down NSS 66 round and you will actually, go to these links, and if you click this mosp one, mosp.nic.in, you'll actually end up getting the report, and basically the same thing you will get. I have already downloaded it here. So let us look at the table. So here, this table 1, table 2 are of not much of use. Table 3 also you can use it. But let's say if I'm interested, I'm coming back to table 3. So let's say I'm interested about the um, education part. Okay, so let's say I want to understand uh, how I can measure the IQ part. Okay, you see, this is the block 4 that provides edu- basically details on education and other things. Okay, skills and education and so forth. So if you see that we have education level general is provided, and we have, let's say, not literate, literate with formal schooling, like, and then you have below primary, primary, middle, secondary, higher secondary, diploma, certificate course, graduate, postgraduate, and above. So that's all you have about, if you want to capture information on general education. Okay. Now, if you want to sort of go and see further about people who join some sort of technical education, let's say engineering or medical and things like that, so we have data for that. So no technical education, technical degree in engineering, agriculture, medicine, diploma certificate below graduate level in agriculture, engineering, and so forth, and above diploma certificate above graduation level in agriculture, engineering, medicine, craft, and other subjects. So all that is talking about is the level of education, whether it is technical or it's a basically engineering or medical, and whether you had a degree or you had a diploma or certificate. That's all you get. Okay, so you have no idea about how they performed, what was the score, or whether they were excellent in some topics, whereas they were not so excellent in some other topics, whether they had a good communication skills, whether they had a good sort of networking skills. You don't have any idea about all this. You can also get about if they're currently attending schools or they have dropped out, so that detail you get. And there's another table that provides you the details about vocational training, whether you have received formal vocational training, non-formal vocational training, and learning on the job, and all these details, and what are your field of training, and so let's say mechanical engineering, and then what are the sources of degree, if you receive this degree from industrial training institute or ITIs or polytechnics and so forth. So it is talking about your trade, your sources of your certification or basically degree, and basically, and like this is the all this is the, all the information that you get, but it has no. So a person who has stood first in, let's say, mechanical engineering from certain ITI may not be, you won't be able to distinguish that from a person who has stood last, perhaps, in the same discipline. And there are so many other variations which are not provided in this, okay? Now, this is all the data that you can get about education, and quite obviously, we do not have any variable for my IQ. So all I can do is basically figure out a way to use data from these different tables. Okay, so this is something that can be sort of, we can sort of explain it as a proxy variable issue. So let me give you another example, which is pretty common, and that example is of income and consumption. And I previously told you a story of how people actually report wrongly about their income data, and that is why often we use consumption informations on consumption as a measure for income. Okay, I know that consumption cannot you know give you a clear picture on the income, but it is somewhat telling the true picture. Okay, it is somewhat telling the true picture because we know there is a relationship that we can see, and that is if I have consumption on the y-axis and income on the x-axis. So what happens is it is kind of seen everywhere, and that is consumption is something, it behaves like that. So basically as your income increases, your consumption keeps on increasing, but at a decreasing rate. So it does not increase in the same rate. So because of this relationship, I can actually use consumption to sort of get some idea about the income. Okay, and that is why in NSS we actually can see different consumption information being collected. Whereas if I want to measure the income, so this particular round, this one is employment and employment round, and still we have a separate consumption round, so that data is collected separately. But even here you will see that income data is not directly collected. Some wage data is collected, but if you see, there are a lot of consumption data being collected. Okay, so let's say um, what kind of foods are being consumed. Okay, so it's a milk product, cereals and pulses and vegetables and edible oils and fruits and nuts. So people actually tend to give you right information about what are the things that consumed over the past 1 week. And then as an economist, I should be able to sort of decipher what would be their income level from the sort of you know from the existing relationship that you can already see. Okay, so that is the idea of proxy variable, and this is a couple of examples of proxy variable, and I'll end this lecture with one more example that we often use in social science, and that is the social status. Okay, the social status, it is indeed difficult to measure. How who is standing where in terms of the social status, and all the data that you can get here is here in this item 6. You can see the social group, and the social group, if you can go to the code in item 6, you will have social groups: scheduled tribe, scheduled caste, backward classes, and others. Okay, so these are the four classes: so SC, ST, OBC, and others. Okay, now it does not tell you the entire picture of social status, because with someone might have a lot of networks. Okay, so and someone might have a lot of information available to them. Someone's parents might have a lot of lands, irrespective of whether they're SC or ST or general caste. Now, so but you cannot really get all this information. So all you can use is to have some idea that okay, scheduled tribes are really lower in terms of the social status. Okay, and perhaps the SC is a little better and OBCs are a little better, and then on the top of everyone is a general caste. So this way we sort of try to get a sense of the data that we have, and usually we see the results that we get usually are not wrong. I mean, we can actually intuitively explain the results. Okay, so with this I will end the lecture on the introduction to the proxy variable, and in the next lecture we are going to actually see what are the impacts of actually having a proxy variable in terms of what are the errors, what are the bias, and what are the standard deviations that we have when we use a proxy variable. Thank you.